This episode proudly brought to you by the Bucket Centre, Shepparton, Central Victoria's newest indoor basketball facility. Follow the.bucket centre on Instagram or thebucketcentre.com.au.
We can continue to pass on the stories and that will keep us here forever. That's the truth because we are the living. We're Manda. Wow.
Welcome to the Talkin Ball podcast, and now introducing a 7-foot-tall Capricorn from Melbourne, Australia, often introduced as a 2-time Olympian, 3-time NBL Champion, League MVP, drafted by Portland. We've all heard that one before. He got to wear number 11 for Dallas, 22 for Chicago, but I think now we'll introduce him as author. Oh, got that word, Luke. Author, father.
You're the one who bought it.
That's right. Father of a UCLA college graduate, part owner of an NZNBL club, co-host of the Has Been Hoops podcast, but perhaps most proudly pub owner at the Hotel Trentham. Ladies and gentlemen, Christopher John Anstey.
Mate, that's an impressive intro. I was a little confused when you started with the Capricorn part. I thought, shit, that's new. But how you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. I'm really appreciative of your time. Obviously, there's a lot that's been happening in the basketball world, and that's also coming up over the next couple of weeks with the Olympics happening. So I'll put it up to you. Where do you want to start? Do we start with the Airs last weekend in their season, the Boomers, or do you want to just talk about the pub?
No, look, the pub doesn't need much talking about. It's a pub. But, hey, no, look, the Taranaki Airs, I suppose, it's an interesting one. I've been around basketball for a long time, and clearly this is my first foray into ownership. And you know, when we put the thing together, and you for a long time we've had an understanding or an idea of how we would like to do things, or certainly I have. And the first thing I always wanted was good people that I trusted around, and to have my good mate Sam McKinnon coach the team, to be able to convince, Mitch McCarron, Sam Froling, and Flynn Cameron, who I've known, of course, to trust us. And, what we're able to do as a group is something that club's never been able to do before. And, to lose the way we did on the buzzer in double overtime against the reigning champions who'd won 16 in a row, it was, even though we lost, it was probably one of the best games of basketball I've seen. I'll tell you what, I'm really proud of the number of eyes we've been able to get on the team and on the league, both domestically and here in Australia, and learnt lots. So it was a fantastic season. Really proud of the boys. We always want to win, of course, but I think sometimes you take steps like that and have seasons where you grow, and already looking forward to seeing how many of the boys we can bring back and how we approach it next year.
Well, obviously, we do like to check in with you on the Has Been Hoops podcast, and you did explain a little bit about the scheduling, but just looking at that, Taranaki, you finished third, but you had to go and play the number 1 team in the semi-final. It was a semi-final.
Yeah, look, they're growing quickly, and they're a little bit like where the Australian NBL was a decade ago. It was struggling. They've beaten off those struggles, but not ordinarily the majority of teams around the globe, of course, their top priority is seeding. One would play 4 if they win through, and 2 would play 3. The way that they decided to do it based on the unavailability of venues and the uncertainty of who might be in it was clearly the playing games were seeded accordingly, but the crossover to the semi-final was dependent on, firstly, venue availability, and second was the length of time between games to give teams equal rest. So as it turns out, we finished third and ended up crossing over against the top team. The team who finished second ends up playing against, ironically, the team that finished 5th, because they knocked off the 4th team. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens as we speak. They'll play tonight, which is Wednesday. I'm not sure if I messed your podcast up by saying that, but
no, it's okay.
No, look, I'll watch it with interest. But look, it's been an important step. The league's growing quickly. They don't get everything right first time. They're aware of the issue, but I've led to understand that it'll be a much more traditional crossover when the playoffs arrive next season.
Okay, well, quick one on that. Who do you think's going to win it? The championship?
Yeah, look, I guess I always grew up hoping that the team that knocks you out wins it. So,
At least you've got
Canterbury
some
won.
consolation that you've.
Yeah, a little bit. But look, the other semi-final is going to be, I think, at the same quality as ours was. Auckland have a number of tall blacks, of course. Franklin have played as well as anyone in the league. They've probably got the MVP of the league playing for. Look, I'll tip Auckland to get through. Canterbury have home court advantage. It'll be close. You might see another really close game like we had.
Yeah. So let's go back to that game quickly. Well, you talked about the scheduling, but also roster management. It's a positive thing that Sam Frolling's developed the way he has, but mate, how much different would that game have been if he was there?
I don't know. They beat us comfortably with Sam twice. So we clearly you would expect us to be better.
Ewing theory going on over there, eh?
They had an injury over there. But you know what? When we recruited all of our players, and in fact, when we recruited Sam, we always we set the goal to recruit aspirational people. So we know that the NZNBL is not going to make anyone rich. It's not going to be imports' final destination oftentimes. But what it is a really important stepping stone to a bigger role in the Australian NBL, to a step to Europe, to coaching in Asia perhaps. So clearly the opportunity for Sam to play in the NBA Summer League was exactly that aspirational step that we hoped that he would be able to take, and he did. And, as much as you realize that it sort of hurts your ability to win a championship, basketball is oftentimes a lot bigger than that. He's had an experience, an opportunity of a lifetime. We're glad and we're confident that the small part we played in his development, ability to be the man on a team professionally, he may have had some small contribution to his ability to do that and prepare for that. So, in the same vein, we think that the improvement Carlin Davison shown under Sam McKinnon, the same type of athlete as Sam, and he'd signed a multi-year development player role at the Breakers. I would expect with the improvement he's made under Sam this year to find his way into some games with some genuine minutes if he's able to continue that level of form. So they're the type of things we want to get done as a club. And if you're able to do things like that, invest into the players genuinely, I think the results tend to take care of themselves. But the culture was great. The boys got along fantastically well. It was a really close team. And at the end of the day, we were one missed basket away from a championship series.
Or one slippery spot on the floor.
Well, there are, bad calls both ways at various times, as per most games, but certainly that one hurt.
For those that haven't seen the game, you can watch it on the FIBA YouTube channel. And Chris's Taranaki Airs did have possession up by a point with a little over a minute left. Got a stop, basically about to throw an outlet to Mitch McCarron, who was standing in the key all by himself. But a player slipped in the opposite end of the floor. The ref blew the whistle, stopped the game, let the defense set up. And I mean, again, it's not the only thing. There's players miss defensive rotations, they miss shots, they miss free throws. But that was a tough pill to swallow at that stage of the game. But just to look at some of the highlights, Flynn Cameron had 25 and 9. We talked about Carlin Davidson. He had 18 and 12 in the game before it, then 22 and 13 in that one. And Chris, I remember at the start of the year when we were at the pub, a couple of the guys, we watched the first game of the Airs at the Hotel Trentham, and a few of the barflies kind of suggested he was a bit of a trick or treat Tony Allen type player, where he seemed a bit of high risk, high reward, but definitely seems like has he calmed down a little bit, or has he just been more reward over the last?
No, it's just education as much as anything. And I think, he's only 20 years old. He's grown up in the local region, and sometimes the most talented kid in the region, is afforded a lot of opportunities and probably not held to account maybe as strongly as some of the less talented players, because they want to retain him in the region. I think, there were a few raised eyebrows. The story came back pretty quick that 5 minutes into the first practice session, Sam McKinnon had made him run laps for missing a rotation.
Okay.
So there was no doubt right from the first 5 minutes of the very first practice session that he was going to be treated exactly the same as everyone else, which he needed to be. But I just think it's a credit to him. You're right. He probably was high risk, high reward. because we invested a lot of time into him. His upside is incredible. Historically, he'd shown a tendency to be inconsistent. So I think to reach that next level, I think any coach needs to look down the bench and know, not necessarily gamble on what their best might be from the player they're about to sub in, but what their exposure to risk is. And I think probably the biggest compliment I can give Carlin this year is his bad games are pretty damn good now. Whereas, historically he'd had a few quiet ones where the bad tended to trail off and be average.
Yep. Well, and I'll tell you what, though, that fadeaway shot, even though you didn't win the game, but that baseline fadeaway at the end of overtime to send it to overtime, that must have been pretty heartwarming. I know you're at the opposite end of the floor. We could see you in the corner cheering along.
Yeah, no, look, he works on that a lot. I'm not at practice all the time, but everyone's talked about that's the shot that he's been working on, and to hit it in a moment like that was important. No, he's come a long way. We're really happy for him.
Yep. And you talked about how it can be a pathway for imports. I know from experience for the local people in Bendigo here, they'll remember when Sean Redditch took the Braves to a national championship in 2005, and then obviously went on to a great career with Perth. Probably a lot of that from the experience of being the man on his team that he was here, and also with Northwest Tassie. But just speak to Mini's ability for a little bit. I know he had 30 in the first final, and then 26 and 8 in that semi. Do you think he has, particularly looking at the state of NBL imports at the moment, is he an Australian NBL quality player?
Look, it's one thing. All we can do is put them in front of everyone, and then it's probably up to individual coaches and clubs to decide that for themselves. His ability to shoot the ball is incredible. He's long, he's 6'8", really good quality human being. I suppose it's a little bit the same, that the times he loses a little bit of confidence when we want him to go and be better again. He had a few quiet games, but the way he stepped up, as you say, in the finals, I think highlighted his ability, highlights what he's able to do.
Yep.
We were really fortunate to have him as part of our group, where he was the only import that we'd never met and had never spoken a word to. He was, as much as Carlin was the high risk, high reward, Elijah was the one that we scouted online and had never met the agent, never spoken to him. And
yep.
He'd actually agreed to come and play in New Zealand before COVID for another team. And so he was aware of the league, and we were able to get him to come. So, he had some incredibly important games for us, and even more so when Sam went across to the United States to play in the Summer League, Sam Froling. So everyone in the NBL's seen him. Their evaluation will be, we'll know that soon enough.
Well, he, as Bill Rafferty say, he definitely had the onions when it comes to some of those three balls down the stretch, which was definitely a pleasant surprise for me and Nan, who was watching in the lounge room. She's an Airs fan now too, mate.
Love it.
We won't talk much more about that game. Obviously, it was an absolute ripper. But one thing I did want to ask you about was you've mentioned with Wertho on your podcast a few of the initiatives that the NZNBL do. For example, essentially the reserves game with the bench players before it in that shortened version, but also the player timeout on the court. I like it. What do you think? Should that NBL have?
Yeah, I've never been a part of it. I've never coached it, but yeah, it's a wrinkle that we don't have. It's sort of NBA-ish, I suppose, where you can call a live ball timeout, but only the players can and the coaches can't be involved. It's a quick timeout, so it doesn't delay the game for a long period of time. And it puts the games on the players' shoulders. I think we always want players to decide the game. I suppose this in some ways is a step towards that, but you mentioned the Rapid League as well. It's the same. There are no timeouts in the Rapid League except for the player timeout. They're 4 4-minute quarters, and what it does is it exposes all of the young players to fans around the country. And around the world, really. They're on YouTube, but it allows them to develop in game environments the way that the core group who play in the main game do. It was really valuable for us, even with, Carlin Davison played some of them. Tobias Cameron was our most valuable player in our team, and he was fantastic in our NZNBL team. The ability to get minutes into some of the young guys and see what they're capable of was really beneficial. And same thing was the first time they've done it. I'm sure there'll be some tweaks. The percentage of the Rapid League counts towards your percentage overall on the ladder in the NZNBL. So
I didn't realise that.
it's meaningful.
Yep.
the women did it last year. They actually allocated one of the 4 points to the winner of the Rapid League, which was too big a reward, most people thought. So I think they've landed on a pretty good balance.
Yeah, very nice. Anything else you'd like to touch on about the Airs season? Or
No. It's been a fun ride. The league's going places, and
the gyms look full for all those playoff games too.
No, they were good. It's a ripper town. We've got great support, and we're spreading the word. So it's at a period of time when the Australian NBL is not on. So no, jump on in. We'll you'll know when the games are if you follow me on social. I'm always talking about them.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's move on to a team that you actually did play for, the Australian Basketball Boomers. How have your expectations changed for the Boomers over the past couple of weeks? Basically from, I guess, pre those games against China to now after, well, I guess the games against Serbia, France, and the USA.
No, they haven't. I don't read much into practice games. They're just that. They're practice games. Traditionally, European clubs don't take them very seriously. Coaches are working on rotations.
I think we really noticed Serbia in their game against the USA as well.
So I don't put much into that whatsoever. I think that the biggest goal for us is to get out of our pool and then find our way into a quarterfinal and take a swing. And I think success for this group is a quarterfinal berth, and where we end up after that, anything's just an incredible result. And I don't say that in any negative way whatsoever. I just think as an Australian basketball public, we need to remember how quickly the rest of the world's growing, just as we aspire to do. And what the team Canada now puts on the floor, even the team South Sudan puts on the floor. If you're talking only those practice games, you'd say the South Sudan are right there with the USA. We know they're not.
Yeah.
But, they've got that length of athleticism. But, we're a little bit older than what we were in Tokyo. We've got Josh Giddey playing his first Olympic Games.
I think the age is a positive, though, isn't it? Like,
it is. It can be.
It can be. But look, we had that continuity and that chemistry and having a bit of that veteran leadership in those crunch moments. I mean, we saw it against France. It helped a little bit. Yeah,
it could be. But again, look, we don't have anyone on our team that's been the guy. We don't have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. We don't have Nikola Jokic. We don't have Giannis Antetokounmpo. We need to do this by committee. We're tiny. So we need to be able to compete physically against those big teams when they really try to punish us inside. And that's something that we haven't seen in the practice games yet. They haven't even tried to do that.
Yeah.
We need to depend on shooting the ball well, because when people will clog the lane against us, and we don't have many. Outside of Patty Mills, we don't have a knockdown three-point shooter, and he's going to be very closely guarded, as you can imagine. So I expect us to be guarded very differently when the tournament rolls around. It's our first game against Spain is just such an important game. If you lose that one, you're going to find we're going to find it hard to come out of the pool. We need to win that one and then take a swing at Greece. Canada may be a step too far for us. I'm not sure. We might surprise people, but again, I just think the Australian basketball public needs to remember how much the rest of the world's improved, and we're also trying to do the same. But one bronze medal doesn't just mean we go and take and one step further next time. It's really, really hard to do that.
I think if we learn anything from the World Cup as well, that first game where we lost by a fly's foreskin to Germany, how much that did have, that was the difference, really. I think it was 5 or 7 points or something like that. So that's first game against Spain. There's no room for hiccups in these tournaments. And I think we all agree that Canada's probably going to get through. I would think we're pretty confident against Greece as well, because of, I know you guys mentioned Gorgian being able to stop a star. So really that first game could be make or break, other than maybe what happens with a Brazil type team in another group for that lucky loser type spot.
Yeah, look, it's, the last Olympics I played at, we'd beaten Croatia by double figures twice leading in. We turned up to game one expecting to win, got our asses handed to us. We probably played the best game of Olympic basketball I'd ever been a part of, beat Lithuania by 30 and qualified through. But because of that loss, we crossed over against the USA and ended up finishing ninth. So you're right, that first game's critical. I I think you'll find Greece are a lot better than just the Giannis Antetokounmpo team. I think
Lathis at the point guard, he's always solid.
yeah. So their system, they're very much like us, where they're strength in numbers, but they've got Giannis as well. So you're right. Spain's critically important. We need to find a way to get that win, and clearly, if we beat Greece as well, we get through. So 2 wins gets us through. 1 might, but one of those ones has to be Spain.
Yeah, and just to quickly look at that schedule, if I'm reading it correctly, that's 7 o'clock Australian time on Saturday night, which is an 11 a.m. start local time in Paris. How do you think that an 11 o'clock game? That's like the old under 14 junior classic type time, mate. How do you think the boys will go with that?
Same for both teams, and always has been, always will be at the Olympics. So
how much
everything will get.
Sorry, like the adjustment of the body clock. I know they've obviously been over there for a week or so now. Like, do you think that comes into?
No, they're fine. They're fine. The body clock's adjusted. We're used to training in the morning. It's your body's used to going at that time. So
cool.
Getting ready to compete at that time. And the thing is, it's always an empty stadium. So Australia, Spain, you look at the stadium, there'll be 2,000 people in a 15,000 seat stadium. It's just the nature of the Olympic Games. Yep. The USA team and the USA games, the French games will sell out. The others, not many people turn up until the quarter. So the hardest part's probably playing a game of such importance in front of a 3/4 empty stadium at 11 o'clock in the morning. So whichever way that is, it's the same for both teams.
Yeah, 100%. And so, as I said, that game's on the Saturday night. Then the game against Canada is 9:30 Tuesday. Greece is 9:30 Friday, August 2nd. Then the quarterfinals could be anywhere from 7 p.m. on the 6th. Hotel Trentham, we having a few watch parties down there, or what's the go?
I'm sure we will. I haven't figured out which ones yet. My 2 oldest kids' birthdays fall right in the middle. So once they've told me where they need me to be for their birthdays, I'll figure out where I'm going to be watching those games. But I'll be watching somewhere or another. I'll be watching.
Fantastic. Now, whilst we're on the subject of the team itself, Clyde Frazier's got a phrase which I do love to bring up. There's 3 types of players. There's those that make things happen, there's those that watch things happen, and there's those that wonder what just happened. So with our Australian team, who do you think who are the 2 guys that are going to make things happen for us, particularly in that last 5 or 6 minutes of a fourth quarter?
No, look, it's going to be Josh, and the ball's going to be in his hands. I don't think that's any secret. That's public knowledge, and that's the way it should be.
I think it's better if we run through Paddy.
Outside of that, sorry.
Do you think it's better if we run the offense through Paddy at all, if he's feeling it?
No, I mean, he hasn't played much in 3 years. I mean, the ball might end up in his hands, but it hasn't ended up. It might end up in his hands, but it won't start in his hands.
Okay.
But outside of that, I think that's the exact dilemma that the Boomers have got. It might be Jock Landale, it might be Paddy Mills, it might be Duop Reith if he finds his way into the rotation. I don't know, but that is exactly the dilemma, is that we've got so many players who it's hard to determine whose hands you do put the ball in, but it will start in Josh's hands.
On Bill Simmons this week, they mentioned about Team USA, why White was picked over Brown, and basically it's because your 12th man's not going to play. So you don't want to have that ego battle there. And obviously White's the type of guy who could probably just accept it. Plus, as you guys have talked about, he's different because he is a up and in guard that can go full court press. To bring that to Australia, I know you threw out, should Rocko perhaps be on the squad, but is it McVeigh's reward for what he's been doing? Like, he's probably going to be the guy who's the 12th man, you would think. Is it because he is a good character guy and chemistry guy? That
maybe not. I don't know. Duop's the one that didn't play much. I don't know if they find minutes for Daly if everyone's injury free.
I guess that's another good example though of a smart guy, chemistry guy. You mentioned Daly's going to be ready to come in.
I think what you need with the 11th and 12th players, and back in the Sydney Olympics, I thought Simon Dwight was really unlucky to miss because he was the best shot blocker we had, and he would have been different to Vlahov, Fisher, the guys that we had, and that's probably Zakarsky. If what we're doing against France, for example, doesn't work and we want to go 2-3 zone, I wouldn't mind having 7'3" in the middle who can protect the rim and go up against Gobert or go up against Vic, But at the same time, let's say you don't need him, then he gets to look at an Olympics because the next time it rolls around, he's going to be a big piece.
So is that why Dyson's being selected? Because you look at Green, Exum, Dyson, that's probably, and then Thibault was the fourth. But is that why do you think he's been brought in?
Don't know. That's one you'd have to ask Gorge. I was surprised that Thibault missed out. Again, Dyson's an NBA guy. He's it's the first time an NBA guy misses out. You'd think the three guys who are very similar are Josh Dyson, Daniels, and Matisse Thibault. Dante's a little bit more guard, can handle it a little bit. But someone was going to be unlucky, and I'd never question Gorge's selection, but he knows as well as anyone they'll be judged on their results, and let's see how they go.
Yeah. Do you think that, Dyson, Exum, and Green have come through the Australian junior system, whereas Thibault hasn't? Do you think that might have been a Basketball Australia?
No, I know Gorge well enough to know that wouldn't have anything to do with it. He would have picked the best team to try to win a medal, and in his opinion, it wouldn't have been Matisse.
So I know you mentioned that Magne was different months ago, and that's why he's probably picked. But should Rocko then, if you think Rocko's in as a third big, should he be in Magne instead of Magne?
No. Look, again, the team's picked. I don't like getting into hypotheticals. I haven't been at training sessions. All I've done is seen them in their own individual clubs, and I haven't seen them blend together. So, as a philosophical thing, I would have really considered Rocko. There's a lot of guys who might consider them. Ingles might be the 12th guy on the team. I don't know.
Yep.
So you're way up. You just want guys there who, when required, need to step up and play the role. I think that's what they've got, that any of the guys are going to be ready at any time.
And I think probably because there is that group of Daly, Ingles, Paddy, that the years of service may have come into that selection as well, knowing that this next crop, the next time, this probably is going to be.
I don't think so, because Daly missed the last one. I think he's in because they realised how much they missed him. I don't think it was Gorge's intent to pick him again 2 years ago, but he forced his way back in. So I don't think you cut him for one and then bring him back if you don't need him. But we needed that additional point guard and someone to get us organised, and he's the best we have at getting us organised.
Yep.
Because our worst case scenario is Josh Giddey rolls his ankle in the first game. We don't have another point guard on the team. That's why he's picked.
I trust Daly. We've been watching him since we were kids, I guess, but I think we trust him to make good decisions and get the right guys the right shot in an unselfish manner at any stage, really, particularly down the stretch.
Absolutely.
One thing I did like that Gorgian's done as well. There's many. I know it sounds a bit like I'm a bit contrarian at the moment, but in those practice games, playing guys that were familiar with each other together, like McVeigh and Magne, or Daly and Goulding, to actually have the players with that continuity come through. So, but moving on from that, there's always one team that's considered a medal favourite that flops. In the World Cup, it was France. I think there might be an outside chance of that happening again. Is there any team that you think might be a little bit overrated or is vulnerable?
No, in a 12-team tournament, you don't. I'm fascinated to see what Germany look like. But the one that interests me is USA. I don't think USA are as unbeatable as what people think. Everyone on that team's a number one or two guy on their team, and not many of them defend for a living. So there's going to be points available to score. Clearly, their offensive arsenal is incredible, but there's only one ball on the court. And the other thing that those guys aren't great at doing is moving without the ball. So that even watching their games, there's a lot of standing around and individual breakdown and fast break points, but if you can score the ball and set up your defense, they're not going to move much on offense. They're going to rely on individual brilliance. The international game is very different. So I'm fascinated to see, the guys on their team who end up being 11th and 12th, whether they sook up or not, how they handle adversity, if they get adversity, how they go through this whole thing, because they're expected to just walk away with this, and in all likelihood, they will win a gold medal, but I just tend to think it might be a little closer than what people think.
And that's why I was kind of disappointed to see they were going to play South Sudan in an exhibition game, because I'm like, these guys are going to come out and surprise them. It would have been nice to see that happen on the Olympic stage, not just in a practice game.
Yeah, look, it also give other teams confidence to see how they play them. Games like that for a country like South Sudan are invaluable. They haven't had the years of playing against the top nations we have. It's their first Olympic Games. So I think that opportunity for them is incredible, and they've done an incredible job. You think of the big deal we made of beating the USA for the first time in a practice game at Marvel Stadium. You'd almost swear we'd won a medal, but Sudan almost did it. So good luck to them. It's there's a couple of teams that are a bit off it. Puerto Rico are a bit off. There's a few others, and there are a couple of easy beats, but it's just going to be a fun tournament to watch.
Absolutely. I actually saw Thon Maker isn't playing for them because of paperwork from Basketball Australia, and that I also noticed that Trenton Flowers didn't get to play his first summer league game because of paperwork from Adelaide. So interesting. I mean, I'm not privy to the clearances of players, but that's just a bit disappointing for both of those guys that couldn't happen.
Yeah, look, it depends. There's always a reason that they're not cleared. It's easy to say he wasn't clear. There's often a reason. And unfortunately for Thon, he's already represented Australia. That's the rules. So it would have been great to see him have that overturned, but there've been other players over the years as well. Once you pick a nation, and that was a Joel Embiid. As soon as he went and played for Cameroon, I think it was, you wouldn't have been eligible to play for the US. So you make your choice. And you got to live with it, unfortunately.
Okay, on to choices. We've only got about 5 minutes left, so we'll crank out these for you. Who do you think will be the tournament MVP? We'll just stay with the men for now, just for time reasons.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Okay, and could you pick an All-Star 5, or have you not looked deep enough?
No, you might end up being able to pick 2 USA, a Canadian, and 2. I don't know. Don't know enough about Greece. Giannis would probably get in there if they do all right. Probably don't know. You'd have to play pretty well to knock Giannis out. Any of the Americans could get in. Wouldn't know.
What about the coaches? Is there any coach that really stands out to you or a well-drilled team? I know you mentioned Spain before.
No, look, it's just nations. I couldn't tell you the name of 10 of the 12 coaches. So I could tell you Steve Kerr's coach, and I could tell you Brian Goorjian's coaching, but what is there's a discipline attached historically to teams like Greece, and I've seen them play a couple of practice games. It's I don't know, and I don't follow the coaches. At the end of the day, it's such a short preparation. It's going to come down to the players. It's going to come down to the choices they make rotationally, for the players they put on the court. Success in this, as much as it's system-based, comes down to making plays, not running plays. And, that sort of is one of the disadvantages we have as a nation. It'll be the players running plays, mid-pick and roll, get into the guts and kick it out to a shooter. That's going to be the difference when it comes down the last couple of minutes in a close game.
And so with the, you mentioned Giannis. It's been announced that he, LeBron and Schroeder are each going to be flag bearers. I've got a quick quiz time for you and the people playing at home. Can you name which other NBA players have been their country's flag bearer over the years?
Well, Patty Mills is one. Andrew Gaze is another.
Yep.
I would imagine that.
There's 2 Argentinians.
That'd be. Did Ginobili carry it? The big fella that just retired last year would have carried it, I'd imagine. Luis Scola would have been the one.
And there's 4 more. There's a Russian, a German, a Japanese, and a Spaniard.
So Kirilenko, did Dirk carry it?
Yes, 2. Japan and Spain.
Couldn't tell you Japan and Spain. You probably got me.
Pau Gasol.
No, there you go.
Rui Hachimura.
Okay.
There you go. You're not too bad, hey? All right, mate. Well, we're looking forward to watching, obviously, all the Boomers games. You keep us in the loop on your social medias with, if we can get down to the pub, I'll be floating by for sure, whether you're there or not, I reckon. Just quick recap on the pub. Saw Cuda down there a couple of weeks ago. That looked like a pretty fun day.
We're in Trentham. It's a ripper pub. We put on as many events as we can. We're we're exactly what a country pub should be. So we're, I think I've just turned that volume down. I might have messed that up.
That's all right.
No, we're exactly what a country pub should be. We're good food. We're well priced. We're only an hour out of Melbourne, hour out of Bendigo, hour out of Ballarat. We sit right in the middle there. The town's fantastic, and I've really enjoyed immersing ourselves into the community.
It's been a nice little place to pop in and have a brew and a nice little mushroom risotto, mate. It's very delicious for the veggies out there. Thanks a lot, Chris. Again, great career. We might have to touch base midway through the tournament. We'll see how we go and we'll do it a little bit quicker next time. But thanks a lot, mate.
No dramas at all.
You do. Good on you.
Catch you soon, mate.
Knock, knock.
We can continue to pass on the stories, and that will keep us here forever. That's a true story.
This episode proudly brought to you by the Bucket Centre, Shepparton, Central Victoria's newest indoor basketball facility. With court hire, individual coaching, team trainings, casual shooting, or even get buckets on your birthday with kids party hire available. The space is for you to get buckets at 17A Mitchell Street, Shepparton. Follow the.bucket centre on Instagram or thebucketcentre.com.au, Shepparton's only dedicated basketball centre. Limited space available, so register now. And after you get your buckets, check out one of the Shep Gators Big V exciting home games just around the corner. Buckets at the Bucket Centre.